Was the biblical figure Cain, famous for slaying his brother Abel, the first Marxist? Now, if you haven't noticed, there's been an uptick recently for those on the American right denouncing Marxism and communism, not just socialism, as the nation's biggest threat. It's an interesting development in American political thought, decoupling communism from Russia, given the United States president is currently less than hostile, let's say it, in his approach to Vladimir Putin and the Russian nation. But once Marxism and communism are separated from the Soviet Union, it needs a new ideological host. And that's where a number of cultural figures have jumped in. Because anti-Marxism has a very fascinating history in the United States. If you want to read more about it, I strongly recommend Andrew Hartman's book, Karl Marx in America, published by the University of Chicago Press a couple years ago. It's a great read. But while there are a number of influences and iterations of this anti-Marxism in America, there is one that's quite uniquely Mormon. And that's one that I want to cover today because it's now getting much broader capital in the United States. So in this video, I want to cover a recent and explicit invocation of this particular idea of anti-Marxism coming from Jordan Peterson, the right-wing figure. Then I'm going to talk about the origins of this idea in the form of the Mormon scriptural theologian and political theorist Cleon Skousen. And then I'll close the video talking about what this connection can tell us about the long and intellectual history of anti-communism in America and how this political thought has evolved. Now, one of the most influential and, I'll be honest, fascinating theorists for American conservatism in recent years has been the Canadian right-wing psychologist and culture warrior Jordan Peterson. His trenchant anti-academic, anti-progressive, anti-woke critiques have been used as intellectual heft for the alt-right, as well as fuel for the Republican Party. Key to his success has been his ability to fuse Christianity, politics, and culture. And I want to give one recent example of his that's gotten a bit of cachet as his anti-Marxism discourse has once again surged in American politics. Here is a tweet of his from just a couple weeks ago, in which, just to read the first part of it, "We think of this evil as Marxism," talking about communism. "In reality, Marxism is nothing more or less than the current instantation of a much more and ancient evil, possession by the envious and hateful spirit that drove Cain to murder his brother Abel." He then places this within biblical terms, saying that this is a longer tradition that goes all the way back to the biblical figures. Now, this, of course, is just the most recent iteration of the fusion of a right-wing and Christian culture, what some scholars have called Christian libertarianism, using the Bible to read into these political arguments, denouncing the other side as not just bad, but evil. It gives theological stakes to these political claims, in other words. But the irony is that this particular idea, connecting modern-day communism and Marxism all the way back to ancient Abel and the envy to get gain, we can identify where that idea originated in popular culture, and that origination might surprise you. Just a reminder before I go much further that if you enjoy this type of content in which I try to use the past to help make sense of the world we now live in, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. I do deep dives on topics every Monday. I connect the past to the present every Wednesday, like dissecting recent political developments, ideas, media, culture, movies. And then on Fridays, I pull back the curtains and talk about the historian's craft, either interviewing authors of new works, engaging and highlighting classic books and articles in the field, or looking at the sources behind historical arguments so that you too can become an expert in historical thinking. And if you want to give back, and I'm so grateful for the many of you who have given back, you can become a member, where for a nominal fee, you get early access to the videos, you get icons next to your name when you leave comments, and most importantly, you can feel good about supporting public-facing scholarship. And the most recent perk that I've added to membership is that there's a link in my posts to where you can ask questions that I will then answer in my Mailbag Monday question. So if you are a member, go to my YouTube channel, click on the post, find the post where I talk about Mailbag Monday, find that link, and you can answer that question. My first video responding to some of those questions will be coming up this next Monday. I also recommend subscribing to my free Kit newsletter, where I provide links, updates, announcements every few weeks or so, and you can follow me on my different social media platforms, especially Instagram, where I do supplemental materials. And most importantly, my next live discussion is coming up next Wednesday. The first Wednesday of every month, I try to do one of these live discussions. This one will be on Wednesday, August 5th at 7 p.m. I'll be answering any questions that come my way, but I'll also be focusing on the lingering issues of dealing with race in modern Mormonism, the topic of some recent videos. That's more than enough business. Let's get back to today's topic. Now, the idea of connecting Marxism, communism, socialism to Cain popped up in some random places, but never in a very substantial way, given which shouldn't be surprising because America tries to attach everything to religion and the Bible. The first person to really offer a systematic overview and a substantive argument was none other than Cleon Skousen. Now, I did a video on Skousen recently where I talk a bit about his origins, how he emerged from being a FBI agent to being an employee at BYU, to the Salt Lake City chief of police, and then eventually a national celebrity in fighting the communist cause. Go check out that video from a month ago if you're interested, where I talk about the origins of his best-selling book, The Naked Communist. I'm currently working on a political biography of Cleon Skousen, so it's likely you're going to be hearing quite a bit more from me on him over the next couple of years. This is an excellent example. This video is an excellent example about how his influence can still be felt, because he devoted his career to using the Bible to make these political arguments, arguing that the biblical stories and the biblical figures, which he would reject calling stories, he'd say it's history, holds the key lessons for solving the modern threats, especially communism. And his 1953 book, The First 2,000 Years, is a classic because it makes that connection clear. He condenses centuries, showing that those ancient patriarchs had the answers to today's questions. And it's in that book that he unveiled his theory that Cain was the first part of a transgenerational cabal of evil trying to overthrow liberty and God's order. He even directly connects Cain's murder of Abel as the first form of what we now call communism, drawing on both the Bible, the Book of Moses, the story of Lamech and Master Mahon, and making this argument that these roots of the current conflict can be found in these ancient patriarchs. Here's a key passage. Quote, Lucifer's alliance with Cain was designed to launch the satanical program almost at the very commencement of human history. Lucifer knew that the secret society which Cain would organize among his older brothers would be the spawning place for many murders. He then connects it to modern communism because Cain, he argues, lusted after Abel's land, just like communists today lust after the property of those who are producing it in the free market. Now, his book, The First 2,000 Years, remains very influential in Mormon circles, but what makes Skousen so successful is he then takes that idea, repackages it for a non-Latter-day Saint audience, and it's one of the core themes in his book, The Naked Communist, published in 1958, that would soon sell 2 million copies. And in that book, you guessed it, he frames communism as a transgenerational cabal meant to overturn liberty that goes all the way back to Cain. So does that sound familiar? Because it should. So now to ask the question, did Cleon Skousen directly influence people like Jordan Peterson? And I'll take this in two possibilities. One, it's very possible. The book, The Naked Communists, as well as Skousen's many other political books, remain very popular, as seen most recently at the Charlie Kirk funeral last year, when Ben Carson specifically cited Cleon Skousen as a prophet, the Charlie Kirk before Charlie Kirk, warning America of Marxism's infiltration. We also know that Jordan Peterson has cited Cleon Skousen before, including citing the Book of Moses and these very passages that Cleon Skousen brought to the national stage with his arguments. Here is a 2007 scholarly article from Jordan Peterson on Genesis 2 through 6, the chapters that are also engaged, we'll call it, with the Book of Moses. And near the end of that article, he actually references the Book of Moses, Cain and Lamech and Master Mahan, as the secret cabal based on vengeance and envy as part of his broader argument. So it's very possible that Jordan Peterson is aware and is directly drawing from Cleon Skousen's work. Where else would he have learned about the Book of Moses? But it's also possible that he hasn't read Naked Communists or Skousen's other works, and he's not directly citing Skousen. But that's how intellectual history works in the world. Even if there's not a direct causation of one person to another, Cleon Skousen introduced this argument into popular culture, which then disseminates around, and whether it goes directly to Jordan Peterson or through several other people, it shows the power of these ideas. And that's what made Skousen so successful in shaping the American right, is because soon his ideas can be detached from him on himself and be attached to these other figures, adapted into these other communities, even in communities that might otherwise be skeptical of using Mormon ideas. And so sometimes it takes being steeped in the literature to see the connection, because as soon as I read Jordan Peterson's tweet, the one that I cited earlier on, I read it in Cleon Skousen's voice. Now, whether he took it directly from Skousen or there was a mediator on the way, it's quite clear that the origins were from Skousen. So to conclude this brief engagement, I think we can highlight three major legacies that come from this story of intellectual genealogy. One is the lingering significance of Cleon Skousen, that his ideas still matter, even if they came directly from him or mediated by others, that he introduced ideas that still shape the American right. Two, it shows the success of Skousen's work and how they can be disseminated into different contexts, even from those who might not believe in his other Mormon ideas, or even might be overtly skeptical of those Mormon ideas. They can pick and choose these concepts. So Jordan Peterson may not be explicitly aware that he's drawing on ideas placed on Cain that were not present in the Bible, but are placed on it through the Book of Moses. So in his compelling argument for modern politics. In other words, this is a deeply Mormon argument, whether they acknowledge it or not. And third, it shows the perpetual anxiety, especially on the American right, to try to connect political ideas to biblical values because it gives them more weight, more capital in the current mindset. Now, as I mentioned, I'm currently working on a project on Cleon Skousen, so if there's interest, I may be doing more videos like this showing both the origins of Skousen's ideas, how they are received in the world, and how they continue to shape political thought. And if you have specific questions, go ahead and leave them, especially if you are a member of the channel. You can go to my Mailbag Monday page and leave a question. Maybe I'll answer it in future weeks. History has never been more relevant than it is today because it allows us to give background and currency and understanding to these topics that might otherwise seem all too disconnected from the past.